The latest on Keon Coleman and other Bills injuries, Quinton Jefferson and Jordan Phillips return, and my predictions for Sunday are coming your way today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of Go Bills and Buffalo's Run, also the co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. I'd also like to invite you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Terms and conditions apply. Well, folks, we got a lot to do here today on this episode. The Bills brought back a couple of familiar faces. They released a player. There's an open roster spot. Keon Coleman's out for this game, potentially longer. And, of course, my predictions for Sunday. Let's get into it. Let's start with the Bills having an open roster spot. Zion Logue has been released. The Bills added him a few weeks ago off of the Atlanta Falcons practice squad, a rookie out of Georgia. He played pretty extensively against Houston, a little bit against the Jets. And if you watch the tape, you knew he wasn't ready to really play meaningful snaps in the NFL. I've commented on that on this podcast, and he's been released, which is not surprising to me. Maybe the Bills will welcome him back to the practice squad, but certainly not a guy that's ready to help this team. And so that leaves an open roster spot after the Bills filled 2 roster spots this week by bringing back familiar faces at defensive tackle in Jordan Phillips and Quinton Jefferson. Even with those 2 guys back in the mix, there's still an open roster spot. Those guys, Phillips and Jefferson, took the roster spot left behind by Mike Edwards, who was released, and then, of course, DeJuan Smoot put on injured reserve. Let's comment quickly on these 2 defensive tackles. Jordan Phillips is back, 32 years old. He's back for a third time. Was originally signed off waivers. The Dolphins released him in 2018. The Bills got him through waivers, and he spent a few years on the team, had the big 9.5 sack season. He leaves in free agency in 2020. Goes to the Cardinals, signs a 3-year, $30 million deal. He doesn't finish that out. They release him. He comes back to the Bills in 2022, spends 2022 and 2023 with the Bills, leaves in free agency this offseason, signs with the Giants. The Giants trade him to the Cowboys just before the start of the season. He's on the Cowboys for 3 months. They release him. Now he's back with the Bills. One thing you know about Jordan Phillips is that he's at his best when he's in Buffalo. That's where he plays his best football. We have quite the sample size to prove that, as he's played in Miami, he's played in Arizona, didn't really work out with the Giants, didn't really work out with the Cowboys. He is a penetration style player. He's a guy that's 350 pounds, but really doesn't defend the run. He's even at his best seasons, he wasn't a good run defender. What he gives you is an athletic body that can shoot gaps and rush the passer a little bit. And, of course, he likes to wave those arms, right? Get the crowd into it. We know all about Jordan Phillips. So hopefully he can give the Bills a bit of a spark in a rotational capacity, rushing the passer. That's my expectations for him. Again, don't count on anything as a run defender here. In fact, I call him a liability against the run. I'm much more excited about the return of Quinton Jefferson. 31 years old, was with the Bills in 2020. And it's unfortunate that year because I like Quinton Jefferson, but that year the Bills had injuries at nose tackle, and he had to play nose tackle. That's not what he is. He is not a nose tackle. He's a player that you want to play in the B gaps, maybe even sometimes as a 4-eye if you want to run some odd front stuff, but you don't want him playing in the A gaps. That's just not where he's at his best. But the Bills had injuries, and that's kind of what they had to do with him. So since leaving Buffalo after the 2020 season, he's played for the Raiders, Seahawks, Jets, and Browns. So he's not really sticking anywhere. 5 teams since 2020. But he does give you some pass rush. Very athletic football player. And he had 6 sacks in 2023 with the Jets. That's last season. He had 5.5 in 2022 with Seattle. 4.5 in 2021 with the Raiders. He's actually had a new career high in sacks each of the last 3 seasons. And so I have a little bit more excitement about Quinton Jefferson because I think he's a better pass rusher than Jordan Phillips. And for what he is, I think he's actually a better run defender as well. More athleticism is at this point in his career. So the Bills get more experience at defensive tackle. So it's Ed Oliver and Daquan Jones and Austin Johnson, Quinton Jefferson, Jordan Phillips. Hopefully somebody can make some impact because the Bills are missing impact this year at defensive tackle. And while these depth players are interesting to talk about, it still comes back to Daquan Jones and Ed Oliver being the players that they're supposed to be. And that's where I really feel like if the Bills' defensive line is going to really take a step this year, those two guys are, of course, as high percentage of the snap players that are paid veterans. They're the guys that really have to come through. So the Bills have an open roster spot. Zion Logue is gone. What are they going to do? Eli Ankou makes a lot of sense to me. I think he's probably the Bills' best run stuffer right now at defensive tackle. I don't know what more he could have done over the last 2 weeks to earn a roster spot. Now, they do have one more elevation for him before they'd have to make that decision, and maybe that's what they'll do. They'll elevate him, and he'll take that roster spot that exists. Maybe there's a safety. They want to elevate Kareem Jackson, who's on the practice squad as a veteran, to fill the place of Mike Edwards if they want to have that fifth safety on the roster. Maybe it's a wide receiver. The Bills are pretty banged up at receiver. We'll talk to Dr. Kyle Trimble on the other side of it, but Keon Coleman's out for this week, potentially multiple weeks. Amari Cooper is going to be questionable with the wrist. We know that Curtis Samuel's got injury issues. I mean, the Bills are going to be looking pretty thin at receiver against the Colts potentially. And so is there a practice squad player? There's a bunch of guys on the practice squad. Jalen Virgil, KJ Hamler, Tyrell Shavers. Do they want to bring one of those guys up to help at receiver? Is there an outside player? Yannick Ngakoue was released and now exposed to waivers by the Baltimore Ravens. I'm interested to see what they do here, but there is an open roster spot. There surely is a plan for it. Perhaps it's going to be an elevation from the practice squad and somebody will take that spot. That feels the most likely, but obviously it's something to pay attention to. One quick note here, Tyler Bass, named AFC Special Teams Player of the Week. Of course, franchise record 61-yard field goal made to beat the Miami Dolphins. He also made from 49 and 40 in that game. And, of course, he missed the extra point. But the heroics at the end, at least for now, makes everything feel right with Tyler Bass. And as I've said multiple times, I do hope that this is a turning point for his career. And this gives him all the confidence in the world to be the kicker that he's paid to be for the Buffalo Bills. All right, we got a lot of injury stuff to talk about on the other side of it here with Dr. Kyle Trimble. It feels like the whole team has a wrist injury. We'll find out what that's all about. Folks, be sure to stick with me. For most of us that like collecting cards, the idea of spending $2,000 or more on a Josh Allen rookie card just isn't in the cards. I love collecting, but that's some serious money to drop. Thanks to Slab Packs from arenaclub.com, now it's possible to score gem mints for a fraction of the retail price. Arena Club is the only repack that provides real value, a complete view of all possible cards, and clear hit rates for each one. Arena Club Slab Packs are revolutionizing the repack game with transparency. After your pulls are revealed, they'll immediately be placed in your showroom for safekeeping, selling, trading, or auction. The Arena Club grading process is accurate, fast, and transparent with full grade rationale provided and explanation of how your card was scored. Whether you're buying, selling, trading, or displaying, Arena Club is the card collecting platform you have to check out. So right now, you can get 10% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL. That's arenaclub.com/LockedOnNFL. Code LockedOnNFL for 10% off your first purchase. Guys, ever feel like you need a little boost in the bedroom? It's time you stopped worrying about your performance and got Hims so you can feel confident knowing you can perform whenever you're in the mood. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. Hims provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints and Viagra and Cialis and their generics for up to 95% cheaper. The process is 100% online, so there's no need for uncomfortable doctor's visits. You just answer a series of questions on their website, and a medical provider will determine the right treatment option. If prescribed, your medication ships directly to you in discreet packaging for free. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's HIMS.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. HIMS.com/lockedon. The products mentioned are chewable, compounded products which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. I'm joined now by Kyle Trimble. He's a doctor of physical therapy. He runs bangedupbills.com. You can follow him on Twitter at bangedupbills. Joins us each week to get ready for the upcoming Bills game from an injury perspective. Got some stuff to talk about here today, Dr. Kyle. I want to start with Keon Coleman, who's been ruled out. But I think the concern is maybe the long term, where Sean McDermott said this could be a multiple week thing. He didn't say that injured reserve was going to happen as of now, but these things can be fluid. It's been an interesting progression to this point. I know you have a lot to say. I'll get out of the way. You tell us about Keon Coleman.
This one's been like a roller coaster this week. Really tough to read. Just to go back and recall, he got hit by Jordan Poyer late in the game. That set up the Bills to get the game-winning field goal. He left with his hand underneath a towel with the training staff, and then everything was kind of shrouded in secrecy for the next few days there. We did see some pictures with him having some type of wrist splint brace on during a photo shoot with Dion Dawkins event. And then he was at a local elementary school, and he was holding his wrist close to his body and hiding it most of the time. So we know that there's been some type of swelling, instability, something in there. On Wednesday, he didn't practice at all. On Thursday, he returned to practice, albeit off to the side. The right hand did look puffy. He was able to tie his shoes and kind of walk around and do a bunch of different things with it. On Friday, he was just doing the warm-ups, and he had that brace back on we said earlier in the week. It looked like he was contusion, and based off of how Poyer hit him, that might have been the case. But now Sean McDermott came out and said, hey, this might be a multi-week injury. Injury reserve was discussed, but they don't know that it's going that way there. I think the biggest reason why they don't maybe put him on injury reserve immediately is because we have the bye week coming up, and the bye week does not count in terms of injury reserve talk. So you miss 4 games, not 4 weeks. So do you think that you can buy some time? Maybe you haven't missed this week since he's already been ruled out, and then buy some time, use the bye week, and then maybe you only miss 2, maybe 3 games versus missing an absolute 4. You have to do roster gymnastics. I don't have a great idea what's going on with the actual injury, though. This could be a small fraction there. They're just hoping that heals up quicker on the 4-week side of things. There could be some ligament damage. There could be cartilage damage. Based off of the brace that he had on, it doesn't look like there's a ton of thumb support like we saw with Dwayne Carter's brace. So I don't know that this is a scaphoid injury. I feel like if this was like a metacarpal injury, we would probably see him go under surgery and say, hey, he's going to be out for a little bit. So this is something probably with the carpal bones, maybe one of the ulnar or radial styloid fractures where those there can be instability there due to just all the ligaments that attach to the wrist to the forearm. I don't have a great read on it. We need more information. I wish I was more clairvoyant in this case, but I'm going off of what I can see, and it is puzzling.
Feels like the 49ers out of the bye week on Monday Night Football feels like the earliest that we would see Keon Coleman, if not sometime after that. But I think the good news is doesn't feel like injured reserve is going to be the case, but obviously a lot of clarity that we need on Keon Coleman. And the reality is he's not playing on Sunday, and we'll listen to Sean McDermott next week and look at all the video and see what clues you can pick up. Speaking of wide receivers and wrists, it doesn't end there. Amari Cooper missed last week with a wrist, and he's been limited all week. He's got a game day designation as questionable. There's been more video of him that's come out. What are you seeing?
We're getting a lot more clarity on that one, thankfully. He did talk with Alex Brasky of the Batavia Daily News the other day, and he was seen with a small hard cast on his left hand. And if you listen to the video, he had said he tried blocking and fell over. After I heard that, I went back to the film against Seattle, and early in the first quarter, about midway through, there was one play where he fell down, or he blocked and then fell and landed on that wrist, and he kind of landed on his butt, rolled over, didn't really think anything of it there. A few other times in the game, especially right afterward, he was a little apprehensive of blocking with that wrist, and then you could see him shaking it out throughout the time, the remainder of the game there, though it didn't really seem to affect his catching. Last week, we saw him have the glove over the area, and he likely had the cast on at that point, and he was still catching balls, but I know that he said in that interview with Brasky that he was having trouble catching balls with the cast, not so much a grip, and it's more of a pain thing there. Knowing all that stuff and the immobilization, You got to wonder if there's not a TFCC injury. The names escape me right now, and I'm not going to try to pronounce it without making myself look silly, but this is basically some cartilage in the ulnar side, which is pinky side. And that helps provide some stability with connecting the wrist to the forearm. And if you were to tear that cartilage in that area, you could have clicking, you could have some instability with turning your hand over back and forth. Grip might be decreased, and you might have some issues with regards to catching footballs and whatnot. So we don't know if that's the case. There could be also a small fraction there. They're just waiting to heal up. It's really just kind of wait and see. There is a possibility of a avulsion fracture too, and that's where a piece of a bone gets pulled off with the ligament due to a fallen outstretched hand. Basically, what we're seeing is that he fell on the hand. There's a lot of possibilities. We know there's a cast. I don't expect him to play this Sunday, and even next week is in question because they're also probably playing the bye into everything, just hoping that maybe they can buy enough time, stack enough wins, and then they can get him back healthy for the final stretch.
Well, if there ever was a week for Curtis Samuel to help the Buffalo Bills, this feels like it's it. Of course, pectoral injury came back last week on a very limited amount of snaps that he was available for. You feel like he can ramp up and help the team?
I mean, he played last week. I mean, hopefully he can and actually do something more productive. I was shocked to hear that he was even on a pitch cut to begin with there, just because you didn't see him. He had one target and he played in the 17 snaps there. So if this is the week for him to snap up or to step up, he better do it because he's been awful this year. And like we talked about last week, I didn't think he would play because he hasn't been effective. So it was complete opposite where we thought Benford and Cooper would play, and then Samuel was set out again because we see pectoral injuries take a little bit more time. So hopefully he can step up because Cooper I don't expect is expected to play, and I don't expect and we know Coleman's going to be out as it is there.
If you hear any background noise, that's okay. We're welcoming one of Dr. Cal's children to the show. It's reality of life, right? We're trying to get these recordings in. We both have kids, and sometimes we got to squeeze it in. So
absolutely,
deal with the noise there. It's real life, man. We're real people. So as far as the injury report goes, I think the good news is because I feel like you've had nothing but bad news. We got to say something good.
Yeah,
Christian Benford, no designation for him. Same thing with Kyer Elam. No designation for him, and Benford practiced in full all week. He'll be back in the lineup on Sunday. Let's get back to the bad news. Balin Spector practiced all week until Friday, where he's limited. Calf injury pops up for Balin Spector. I guess it was too good to be true that he had been, several weeks without being on the report, but now he's back on there.
Yeah, we don't know too much about that with regards to Spector. I mean, that's always stinks when you see things pop up and practice late in week and you don't have a video, you don't have any context as to what's going on. Given all the stuff that he's been doing, I don't see how he plays, but with all the injuries, maybe he does get out there. It's a toss up, and I wish I had more information on that, but calf, you're running down the field on special teams, you're doing all this stuff defensively. I don't see how he plays and is effective without having an early exit and basically wasting a roster spot. And then to note, both we mentioned Elam and Christian Benford. I do expect to see Benford play with some type of splint or brace on the area. And then we will expect to see Elam play with a shoulder harness because he did say he dislocated the shoulder and then they had to reduce it and pop it back in. So this is something you can play through, but don't be alarmed or surprised if Elam does have an early exit at some point because if he has another instability event there. So this happens in football. We've seen plenty of guys play through that. I'm pretty sure Quinton Morris is doing that right now with his shoulder harness. And it's just a matter of next man up mentality.
Yeah, these dudes are tough people, man. They play through some crazy stuff. And I think with Kyer Elam, obviously he's not a starter for this team, but he does play a fair amount of special teams. And that's something to be mindful of as he tries to navigate doing that with the shoulder issue. Last one here, Reggie Gilliam, the fullback he missed last week with a hip injury. This week he's listed as questionable once again, limited participant in practice all week. Any gauge there?
Nope, no idea. I mean, he's suffering in practice. It was good that he was limited, but that was what it looked like last week after he had I think he did in practice last week. I think it was full and then went limited or do not participate. So he upgraded. It'd be great to see him play, but keep these guys healthy and get them, if they need to sit, let them sit there. So, this is one of those situations where I wish I had more information, but we're going off of what the team is giving us. And a lot of times they don't give us a whole lot.
Big week coming for Dalton Kincaid, Khalil Shakir, fingers crossed on Curtis Samuel. Throw the ball to these running backs out of the backfield. Got to figure this one out. Shorthanded at wide receiver, of course, the Colts not going to have Michael Pittman, their number one receiver for this game. So we'll see what happens. Going to be an interesting one on Sunday in Indianapolis. Dr. Kyle Trimble, thanks for your expertise. We'll get ready for the Chiefs next week.
Sounds good. Go Bills.
When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role, and that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals that you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't even visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. So hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. In fact, 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions, they do apply. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's FanDuel.com, and they have so much good stuff going on. I like a lot of lines this week. Give me the Steelers as road underdogs going into Washington and winning. I like that. I like the Patriots. They have the Patriots plus 6.5 this week going up against their opponent. And I think they're going to be able to cover that spread. So much good action over at FanDuel. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, folks, it is prediction time here on this podcast. Before I get there, two things I want to remind you about. We have the Locked On Bills subtext community where you can get text message updates from me. I send text messages during the game after every series, let you know what I'm thinking, what I'm seeing, what I'm feeling. You get my first reaction to all major Bills news right to your cell phone, so you have to scroll through social media to get Bills news. I send it right to you with my first reaction. You also get access to our Discord community with over 1,300 Bills fans in there, where I do a lot in that community. We have, of course, it's a big group chat, but also I do a weekly hangout every Wednesday night. We do something fun, interactive, usually for at least an hour, where I go and I answer live questions. We have a lot of fun in there. I do daily polls. We have trivia contests, so many cool things, so many incentives for joining the Locked On Bills subtext community. Also, I started a Substack. Substack is where I write articles. I'm doing 4 a week right now at least, where you get a post-game column where I summarize some of my big picture thoughts on every Bills game. You get the all-22 review. So I send a film, usually 30 to 45 minutes, with me breaking down film every single week from the Bills game. You can watch that right on the Substack. And you also get a weekly Josh Allen scouting column, a weekly scouting preview for the Bills' upcoming game. Tons of big ideas for the offseason as well. So check that out. There's a link in today's show notes to join either the Subtext or the Substack. I think you'll love what you get in either opportunity. So much value, so much more content that you can get from me. All right, prediction time. I got 5 of them for you here today. Weird game, right? A little bit funny. Bills don't play the Colts that often. It's on the road. Injuries are going to be a factor in this game. Here's what I see happening. And with my predictions, as I always like to say, I like to tell a story. You know, I try to be a little bit bold with these predictions, but I want to give you a bit of a story as to how I think the game's going to play out. So number 1, the takeaway streak for the Bills defense continues. The Bills have taken the ball away. They forced a turnover in all 9 games this year, and the last 2 last year. So it's at 11 consecutive games with at least 1 turnover for the Bills defense. Make it 12. I think the Bills, whether it's intercepting Joe Flacco, who will put it in harm's way, he's got a high turnover-worthy throw rate. He also likes to push it down the field. Whether it's a fumble, right? There's certainly that possibility. I think the Bills are going to get at least 1 takeaway in this game, and that streak will continue to 12. Number 2, I think this is going to be a big Dalton Kincaid game. Bills have injuries at receiver. And Dalton was targeted 10 times last week against the Dolphins. There just wasn't a lot of efficiency between Josh Allen and Dalton Kincaid. But I think he's getting open. I think there's a lot more meat on the bone. I think a lot of that comes together this week. So put me down for at least 50 yards and a touchdown from Dalton Kincaid. So a little parlay there, plus 50 yards and a touchdown. And the Colts are giving up production to tight ends. They've given up the most catches to tight ends this season, at least in terms of receptions per game. I think there's going to be some opportunities. I think Josh is going to be looking for Kincaid. I think there's going to be some numbers there. Number 3, I think Khalil Shakir gets 6 or more catches this week. Obviously, no Keon Coleman. We'll see what happens with Amari Cooper. But as I said yesterday in the primer, the Colts defense very good at taking away the deep ball, not very good with short passes, right? The 0 to 9 yards, even the 10 to 19 yard range, their EPA numbers are not very good. And this is going to be a good, stout Colts defense defending the run. The Bills, I don't think, are going to really be able to win as much with their receivers on the outside. I think running backs, tight ends, and slot receivers, that's going to be the recipe for the Bills this week. A lot of short passes. Structurally, this defense is going to be similar to what the Bills got last week in Miami, with a lot of soft coverage cells, deep vertical leverage maintained. Josh is going to have to take checkdowns, rely on yards after catch. I think Khalil Shakir is going to be featured. So it's going to be a Kincaid, Shakir, Cook type situation here for the Buffalo Bills. Of course, Ray Davis as well out of the backfield. But the bet there, or the prediction, 6 or more catches on for Khalil Shakir this week. I think if you can get in on some of the FanDuel betting props, I'd be looking on overs for whatever they're projecting for Kincaid and Shakir. Number 4, put me down. And fingers crossed I'm right about this one. Put me down for a defensive tackle sack. There's only been 3 this year in 9 games, 2 from Daquan Jones, 1 from Ed Oliver. I think someone's going to get one. And so Ed Oliver, Daquan Jones, Jefferson, Phillips, Anku, whoever's playing, Austin Johnson, one of these guys is getting a sack. Flacco's getting the ball out of his hands quick. They've got good tackles. But on the inside, they're starting 2 rookies in their center and their right guard. Get some quick pressure in the face of Joe Flacco and get yourself a defensive tackle sack this week. So put me down for the 4th, at least the 4th defensive tackle sack of the season for the Bills. Then lastly, do I think the Bills win this game, or do I think they lose? There's a lot of thoughts that the Bills, this could be a letdown game on the road, Kansas City next week. I don't think so. I think the Bills go take care of this one. It might be a different looking game. It might be a sloppier game. I don't know how explosive the passing game is going to be for either team. It could be a lot of rushing production, but this is Josh Allen against Joe Flacco. This is a team that's in year 2 that has some pieces with the Colts, but still trying to figure out their identity. I think this is a Bills team that I think has been focused. I think they'll find a way to win. It might be ugly, might be a 24-17 game or something like that. I don't know that the Bills are going to go in there and mop the floor with them. The Colts have been competitive in every game, but I think there's enough advantages for Buffalo in this game to come away with a win. So put me down for the Bills winning and getting to 8-2. And with that, the hay is in the barn, folks. Done all we can to get ready for this game on Sunday. The only thing that's left to do is for the Bills to go out there and win the thing. And hopefully they do. And we're celebrating a Victory Monday, as next week is Chiefs week, as the Bills welcome Patrick Mahomes and company to Highmark Stadium. All right, folks, that's it for us here today. As always, I kindly ask that you share, subscribe, rate, and review. Check out the subtext. Check out the Substack. As always, go Bills. And I look forward to catching up with you again real soon.